know about, gut health and why is it important?
Oh, what do we know? How many hours do we have? So I am very passionate about this, not only because, it's interesting my journey with gut health. I have had issues with my stomach since I was a little kid. I genuinely cannot remember a time when I ate and my stomach didn't hurt. But I
Mm,
can vividly remember being in elementary school and mentioning to my best friend for the first time that, well, my stomach hurts every time I eat because I thought everyone's stomach hurt every time they ate. It was normal. And her being like, oh, my stomach never hurts. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm weird. And you normalize things. Kids are very resilient. You experience what you experience and you assume that's normal. You don't really talk about it. So I probably wasn't in middle school until I got to a point where like I really couldn't eat anything. So I went through the ringer with GI care, all of your basic tests, all of the you're fine, get over it, figure out what your trigger foods are. I remember being like 14 years old and getting handed a sheet for a low FODMAP diet. You probably don't know what that is, but it's a very, very intense diet and nothing anyone should ever do without medical supervision. And I just was given this sheet of paper of like, stop eating all of these foods. And that was the extent of my health. I learned how to figure it out myself. But what's so interesting, and I can see a lot more in hindsight. I have had mental health issues since I was a kid, but I grew up in the 2000s, and I don't think people talked about mental health as a kid, and it's nothing to do with my parents or the space that they created. It was just not the culture to say, I'm sad every day. I hate myself. I feel anxious every time I have to do
mm,
anything. You just sucked it up and you got over it. So I could start to see as I got older what was happening. And my turning point with my gut health was when I was in college. I had a real bad few months. I had something happen that was unfortunate. And all of a sudden I couldn't eat. I lost 10 pounds in a month. I truly could not find a single food to eat where I did not get viciously sick after. And the doctor told me I was normal and everything was fine. So I kind of went on this journey to, become a healthcare professional myself and try to figure it out. And I found functional medicine and it worked. But when I found functional medicine and I learned about the gut brain connection, which I'll go into a little bit more, it answered everything for me, like all the way back into childhood. If I had been able to care for my mind, if I had gotten the care that I needed, if the doctors had asked the right questions in a safe way. Because I do remember one point being young and the doctor asking me if I was feeling sad, and I just didn't feel safe saying, yeah, I feel sad. I was like 13 years old. But when I look back on that experience in college, it's just so crystal clear, what happens. But gut health. So it's getting a lot more media attention, a lot more healthcare attention. And I think there's a lot of good in there and maybe a little bit of bad. Basically, people are starting to realize that kind of a cornerstone, a foundation of our health is the health of our gut. We make a lot of neurotransmitters in there. Our immune system is pretty much in our gut. We are what we eat, but we are what we digest. So you could have the most perfect diet, but if you don't have the digestive system to actually absorb and assimilate all of those nutrients, it really doesn't matter that you just met all of your servings of fruits and vegetables that day. So there's a lot more attention about it. I think what can get a little bit challenging in the world of social media is that all of a sudden everyone's a gut health expert when maybe they
mm.
didn't actually go through any professional training to understand the intricacies of gut health. I think there's a lot of one size fit all protocols that are being put out that really aren't going to super support people. On the flip side, there are people who really, really do know what they're talking about, and it can provide a lot of answers to people. And I think the gut brain connection is the biggest thing. And there's a lot of even like bigger healthcare systems that are paying more attention to the gut brain connection now. And really what that means is there's, a nervous system in our gut, the enteric nervous system, and then we have our central nervous system. Your gut and your brain are connected through the vagus nerve. What you feel sends signals to your gut. What's going on in your gut sends signals to your brain. So this is now fully acknowledged in the medical field, which is huge. So for something to be actually acknowledged as real and existing in Western medicine, there has to be so much evidence, so much study, so much of this stuff. So the fact that we've gotten to that point in healthcare is absolutely phenomenal, and it's exciting to think about where this can go. But essentially, your microbiome, the different little bacteria and microbes that are existing in there, that's going to change kind of everything. A lot of people have some what's called dysbiosis, meaning that it's off kilter. It's not optimized. And when that can happen with antibiotic use, it can happen with stress. It can happen with diet if you're not eating a lot of the good stuff that really feeds that microbiome. And then that has, this massive effect on you having a bit of an iffy microbiome. And then you're not creating as much serotonin, you're not creating as much of those good neurotransmitters. So that's going to go right into your brain. You're going to feel a little depressed, you're going to feel a little bit anxious. When you feel depressed and anxious, that then sends a signal to your gut too to be a little bit more dysregulated. Vicious cycle. But there's a lot of therapies that are clinically studied to really, really support. If you can work on your brain and your gut at the same time, that's when you're going to feel your best. So that's where a lot of, more holistic specialties are looking when it comes to gut health is kind of like we were talking about earlier, understanding your body holistically. Well, how can we understand how a stressful moment is then going to affect our gut? And the bigger part of this, and what I think is the most important part of the gut-brain connection, is what's happening to your gut under long-term stress. Because we as a society accept long-term chronic stress as just a normal way of life.
Right.
Where everyone always talks about how stressed they are, how busy they are. It's normal. I mean, really, think about if you catch up with friends or you haven't talked to someone in a while and you ask them how they are. It's usually, oh, so busy at work. It's so stressed. You ask them how work is. It's stressful. I never have time for a break. And that's normalized and that's, applauded. Actually, we talked about this a bit earlier. So what's happening is our body is not made to sustain that. That is just not how our body works, is to live in this capitalism culture, this hustle culture. So our nervous system is trying to protect us. And I think that's what's really, really important to understand. Even when it's dysregulated, it's trying to protect you. Your nervous system is your friend. It's not something to get mad at. It's something to nurture and to understand, because everything that's happening, even the things that feel bad to you, it's still trying to protect you. So one major way that it's trying to protect you is you feel chronic stress. Your nervous system doesn't know that stress is not an actual threat to your survival, in the way that millions of years ago, feeling an intense, stressful moment actually meant that there's a bear over there that you need to run from, instead of there's an email from your boss over here that's really making you go bonkers. So it's going to start to prepare your body physically to survive. It's going to release a lot of cortisol. That's going to make your blood pressure go up, your blood sugar go up. And what it's going to do is it's going to take all of that energy that would go to digestion and put it elsewhere. Because if you're in a life or death situation and your body needs to protect you and you need to survive, it really doesn't matter if you're digesting your lunch right now. That's not a good use of energy. The flip side of this, what's called a fight or flight response, this cortisol, this activation, this go, gotta fight, gotta survive. It's called rest and digest. No one ever talks about that. I think, most of the time when I'm talking to clients about fight or flight versus rest and digest, everyone knows what fight or flight is. No one knows what rest and digest is. It's the opposite side. Your body is in one or the other. Sympathetic, fight or flight, parasympathetic, rest and digest. Imagine you're constantly in fight or flight. So obviously you're not going to be able to digest because you're never in rest and digest. And that's what's going on. Your body's not putting blood flow to your stomach. Your acid secretion, your enzyme secretion isn't working. Your motility is going to be affected. How quickly you can pass food through the digestive tract. All of that is going to get very, very out of whack because it's not a priority for survival. Wow. When this happens long term, because that's kind of what modern life is, or we're not really taught tools to regulate our nervous system and to kind of intentionally switch it from fight or flight into rest and digest. And we kind of think living in fight or flight is normal. So if you think about years and years of living this way and having very small moments of rest and digest, your stomach's always going to hurt because you're not digesting your food. And if you're not digesting your food, it's just going to be pain. And then you're going to feel like crap because you're not actually assimilating all those vitamins and nutrients that your body needs to sustain life. So that's kind of what I think is the most interesting. I think it's super interesting. There's a lot of studies about how the state of your microbiome impacts anxiety and depression, how it's actually impacting mental health disorders because of that neurotransmitter interaction and because of that vagus nerve that's connecting everything. What I think needs to be talked about more is what I think is more relevant, and this is definitely, a bias of my situation and the client base that I work with. What I think is so relevant is you can take your probiotic. You can go through this gut healing protocol that you bought off of Instagram. You can do all of this stuff. But if you don't get to the root cause of, well, I'm stuck in fight or flight. So this is going to perpetuate until I figure that out. That's to me the game changer.